Welcome to our introductory training for the Educational Financial System, the EFS. The EFS is used annually by school districts to report financial information to the Connecticut State Department of Education, the CSDE. This session provides an overview of the system. More detailed information is available in the EFS user guide and through the help screens found in the system. In today's training, we will introduce the system flowchart, explain how to log into the system, go over the upload file template, and show how to prepare a file to upload your district's expenditures. We will explain how to allocate certain expenditures within the system and how to upload your expenditure file. We'll discuss the data validation process, how to process the uploaded data file, and the expenditure detail and summary screens. We'll show the EFS schedules and reports. Then finally, we'll review the next steps for you to practice using EFS and provide some reporting tips. The flowchart, as well as everything we will be highlighting today, is included in the EFS user guide. We'll provide the link for that at the end of this session. The basic process shown on the flowchart is to log in, determine whether certain expenditures will need to be allocated to school locations, and upload an expenditure file from your general ledger. Then, correct any errors found during the validation step and process your batch. Finally, review the EFS schedules and reports and certify the file. That's the general outline. Now we'll discuss the whole process in more detail. You'll need a user login and password. If you don't have one, ask your district's security manager for the CSDE Directory Manager system to set you up with the EFS writer role. Navigate to the EFS user website and enter the login information. Note we have a website dedicated to training as well as the actual data reporting website. Both addresses are provided on the slide. If you have other state reporting roles assigned through the Directory Manager system, you'll see a drop-down menu where you can select EFS and click the Continue button. This will bring you to the EFS homepage. If you have no reporting roles other than EFS, you will be pointed directly to the EFS homepage when you log in. From the EFS homepage, you can do several things. Navigate to the allocation page, select and upload an expenditure data file, view the status of uploaded files, view the details of uploaded files, and view the status and navigate to all schedules. The EFS template is an Excel file that provides the layout that your expenditure upload file will need to have. Each of your expenditure records will be a row on this file. You'll identify the attributes of each record using the appropriate EFS codes in columns A through G, the funding source, function, education type, and optional designation of pre-K expenditures, an allocation code if needed, and location code, the particular school or your central office to which the expenditure applies. Columns H through J are from your general ledger, the expenditure amount, account number, and account name. This is the table that defines the EFS codes. The funding source code identifies if the expenditure was funded by local, state, federal, or other funds. The function code identifies the activity for which the expenditure is used, for example, instruction, administration, or transportation, and is based on the coding in the Federal Handbook, Financial Accounting for Local and State School Systems, 2014. The object code identifies the service or commodity obtained by the expenditure. The applicable codes from the Federal Handbook, the NCES object codes, are shown on the table for reference, but you will need to use the applicable EFS object code on your file. The education type codes are based on the program codes shown in the Federal Handbook, the NCES program codes, but again, you'll use the EFS education type code on your file. Reporting the pre-K code is optional. We don't currently need this for any reporting purposes. If you don't identify expenditures as pre-K or not, you may leave this field blank on your file. And finally, the allocation codes are used to identify either employee benefit records to be allocated by function and school location, or other expenditure records that need to be allocated to school locations. To prepare your upload file, first you'll need to download expenditure account totals from your district's general ledger into an Excel file. The fields we need are the expenditure amount and your account code and description. For this demonstration, we're showing just a few records. It may be helpful for you to segment your account codes by function, object, and other attributes built into your account numbers to aid in sorting the records so EFS codes can be assigned to a group of records. There are several ways to segment fields in Excel. We show one method using the MID function in Appendix A of the EFS User Guide. Copy and paste as values all records from your Excel file on a copy of the EFS template starting in column H. You'll then need to assign the appropriate EFS codes to each expenditure record in columns A through G. It's fine to use column K and greater to hold the segmented account information until you've completed assigning EFS codes. For example, if you sort your expenditures based on your location codes, you may be able to assign each appropriate EFS location code to all the corresponding records at once. This screen shows the file with all EFS codes assigned. Also note that there are a number of combinations of EFS codes that are not valid. For example, you can't report a teacher salary object using a transportation function. These are specified in the user guide. Once EFS codes have been assigned to all records, delete all columns K and greater from the upload file, but you may first want to save a copy of the whole spreadsheet for your files. Then, save the file on your computer as type comma delimited .csv. EFS includes two ways to allocate expenditures. The first is for employee fringe benefits, which need to be assigned to the same function, education type, and location code as their corresponding salaries. You can either do this by assigning them specifically in your upload file, or you can use the allocation feature built into EFS to assign the benefits based on salary expenditures. To use the EFS allocation feature, you first need to create separate benefit expenditure records for each funding source and education type. Then use EFS object code B2 and EFS allocation code 1 on each record. The other allocation available in EFS is used to assign minor school-level expenditures not identified to individual schools on the district's accounting records to schools based on student enrollment. This method requires you to assign the allocation codes 2 through 9 used on your upload file to the schools to which they apply. To do that, from the home screen, select Allocation Groups. This opens the allocation table, which lists all of the schools and programs operated by your district. Use the checkboxes to identify the allocation codes applicable to particular schools and programs. For example, The screen shown will allocate any expenditure using EFS Allocation Code 2 to all 4 schools checked, and those using Code 3 to just the 2 elementary schools. Once your upload file and allocation table are complete, you're ready to upload the file to the system. Navigate to the home page, then select Browse. Find the upload.csv file stored on your computer, then click Open. Now your upload file name will appear next to the Browse button. Click on the Upload button. If your upload file contains a header row, which it probably does unless you've deleted it, select the first option. This is not a row of data, please ignore it. Then click Load Data for validation. Initial uploads may contain errors in EFS coding or in the way that EFS codes were combined. If that is the case, the status indicated in the file upload table will be Validated with Errors. To see the errors, click the Details button. In this case, there are 2 coding errors, a missing EFS location code and an invalid EFS object code. To fix the errors, you can either correct your upload file on your computer, then re-upload it into the system. The other option is to edit the record within the EFS system. If you edit the record within the system, we recommend that you also update the upload file stored on your computer in case you later need to upload again, to avoid experiencing the same error. When you click the Edit button, a pop-up window opens with drop-down menus for each EFS code. In this case, the error was a missing location code, so we just selected the school from the drop-down list, then clicked Save to save the change. We fixed the second error in the same way by choosing the correct object code from the drop-down list. Once the initial coding errors are cleared, click the Revalidate Batch button. This is a second validation process that checks the combination of the EFS codes used. In this case, there's an additional error due to invalid code combinations, using the teacher salary object code with the function for central administration, which is not valid. We can correct the error in the same manner as the previous errors that were fixed. We click the Edit button, then correct the object code and save. After the errors have all been corrected, the status changes to Validated without errors. You must then click Process Batch, which performs the allocation calculations, combines records with identical coding, and loads your data into the EFS expenditure table. You'll see a warning that when you process the batch, all previous expenditure data will be overwritten. If you had processed a batch previously, it would be wise to download the previously processed batch from the expenditure detail screen and save on your computer. Then click the Process Batch button. The expenditure detail screen now opens, which lists all of your processed records loaded into the EFS expenditure table. If you used the allocation features in EFS, the expenditure table will include more records than were in your upload file due to allocating out the costs. On this page, you can filter and search by any of the EFS fields and can download either the complete file or just the filtered records. There is also an Expenditure Summary screen, which shows the elementary secondary expenditure amounts that are included on the EFS schedules and reports, with a reconciliation to the total expenditure amount included in your expenditure file.
EFS includes several schedules which summarize your expenditure data into categories that are important for reporting and grant reasons. Each of the schedule lines includes data from the prior year, as well as the dollar and percentage differences for your reference. Some of the schedules also have fields for amounts that you must enter manually. The list of schedules is shown under the Schedules header. We'll introduce you to some of them now. All amounts shown on the Special Education Schedule are from the EFS Expenditure Table. The amounts are divided into upper and lower sections determined by EFS Education Type 2 or 3 used on each expenditure record, which classify the expenditures as eligible or not eligible in the computation of net costs of special education per state statutes. The sections are equivalent to the former ED-01 Schedule 4, the upper section to Column 1, the lower section to Column 2. On any EFS screen, you can click on the question mark in the upper right corner to open the applicable section of the EFS User Guide. From the Special Ed Schedule, the question mark will open the table that defines the EFS expenditure codes that apply to each data field. Clicking on any line or drop-down arrow will show the detail records making up that line. From this screen, you can edit or delete any of the records. If we click the Edit button, a pop-up window opens where you can change the amount or certain EFS codes. Note that when editing from a schedule line, only EFS codes available are those that apply to that line. So for example, in this case, we could not change the education type code to anything other than 2, since that is the only code that applies to this line. To make that type of change, you could navigate to the expenditure detail screen, find the record there, then make any changes necessary. As an example of a schedule that includes both expenditure fields filled from the EFS expenditure table, as well as manual entry fields, we'll review the transportation schedule. The expenditure fields operate in exactly the same way as on the special ed schedule. For the manual entry fields, you must enter the data items and then click the Save button. In this case, we need to enter the number of students transported for each expenditure shown. There are separate schedules for different sources of funding used for your expenditures. An example is the federal funding schedule, which includes all of your federal grant expenditures. The upper section of the schedule, lines FF 101 through FF 301, lists the details of federal grants expended. The lower section reconciles those expenditures to the total federal fund expenditures reported in the EFS expenditure table using EFS funding source codes 2 and 13. In the upper section, lines FF 101 and FF 102 are imported directly from the prepayment grants ED 141 system. If ED 141s have been updated, a refresh button will appear next to the expenditure. Click it to update the EFS number. Enter the details of any other federal grants expended in the appropriate lines, FF 201 and FF 301. Be sure to click Save when you're done. 3 types of data checks are included under the Data Issues header. Districts must answer all of these by selecting the applicable answers provided and/or entering text in the Other box. Be sure to save after each page. The data check types are in-schedule training analyses, which the system automatically generates when you process a file or revise expenditures. Trending analyses, which run when you click the Perform Analyses button. And desk audits, which aren't available until the State Department of Education has reviewed your data after your initial September 1 submission, and we reopen the system for revisions, typically by late October. There are several reports available under the Reports header. Most show data at the district level, reports DR1 through DR8. Report SR1 is also available, which shows expenditures by function and object for each school. An example is DR1 Function/Object Summary Report, which is equivalent to Schedule 12 on the old Form ED-01 or ED-01R, and similar to Schedule 2 on the old Form ED-01C. You can run this report for any fiscal year with EFS data, any school district, and can filter by funding source if desired. If you click on an amount, another window will open listing the detailed records that make up that amount. Click the back arrow to go back to the main report. Now that we've shown how to enter and review EFS data, we'll go over some next steps for you to take and provide a few tips for using EFS. We recommend that new users review the EFS guidance available on our website, which include the EFS user guide and some frequently asked questions. Then try working with the system with a practice file in our staging test server and review the EFS schedules and reports. Your actual data submission is due on September 1st each year. Send us questions anytime to our mailbox. And finally, we have a few reporting tips to highlight. For initial uploads, you may want to send just a portion of your file to see what types of errors you receive. This may guide you preparing your entire file. Any file you upload will overwrite all existing expenditure data. Don't forget to click the Process Batch button after all of your errors are cleared. Also, we recommend that you delete any records with 0 expenditures from your file before uploading to make the system run a little more efficiently. Many of the function codes include an X character as a wildcard. You can use any number or letter in place of the X in your upload file. However, it will be converted to an X in the processed file. The function codes are modeled on the standard federal codes published by the National Center for Education Statistics, but in some cases we needed more detail in EFS. For example, for food service expenditures, we need to separate the portion funded by local funds to cover an operating deficit from the portion funded by grants and fees. So we've created separate codes. Also note that some districts use function codes in their general ledger that aren't consistent with NCS codes. For example, some districts use function 2100 for special education expenses. However, that is not a current NCS code. For EFS, special education expenditures are identified by using the education type 2 or 3. We have defined certain expenditures as school level, which will be reported by school, and district level, which are not. The level is usually determined by the defined level of function. There are more specifics listed in the user guide. District level expenditures should use your district central office organization code listed on the slide. school-level expenditures must be reported either with a school location code or, if allocation is needed, the central office code along with an allocation code. Staff assigned to one location should always be reported using the code for that location and not allocated. We hope this presentation gave you a helpful introduction to the EFS system. The EFS user guide contains more detailed instructions regarding the topics we covered. Thank you for your attention, and please don't hesitate to contact us if you have questions.